Another month, another 30 games. Pretty sure 30. We're talking about June. 30 days has September, April, June, and November. Another 30 games to talk about. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And this is the Game a Day challenge I've been doing now for 6 months plus. And still about 6 months. The plus is the stuff I've played and I haven't talked about yet. But basically, for those who don't know, I've been doing a Game a Day challenge the entire 2022, playing a new game every single day. That does include expansions, it does include prototypes, it does, that's does, not does not. It includes expansions, it includes prototypes, it includes any form of new game. A game that is new to me that I have not played before, and then I note it, and sometimes I play it again, other times I don't, and I talk about it over here in some way, shape, or form. As usual, I will be diving into this with a bit of, well, as usual from the past 2 videos, this is the 3rd time I'm doing it, I'm not fully going into all the games. I will rattle through all the games I've played, and then I will focus on 11 or 12 or so that I want to talk about a bit more. In general, I'll be doing a full, or I already have, I may have already done it. In general, I already have done or will be doing a separate quarterly roundup of all the games I've played, where I talk about everything and not just the specific highlights. But in any case, let's go ahead and dive into this, starting off the bat with the ones I'm not going to talk about more, at least not right now. Partially it's either because I have less to talk about, or I already reviewed them, or I'm just less compelled to talk about these in detail at the moment. So, starting off the bat, I played the expansion to Bytes. I played Foundations of Rome, the expansions, all the expansions. In general, when I count expansions, I allow myself to count the base game and the expansions as a singular bundle. That way I'm not cheating and counting like 4 different expansions for Foundations of Rome. I played Disney Sorcerer's Arena from the OP. I played the expansion to QE, another expansion from War Game Tables. There's a bunch of expansions here, but they're separate games. I played the Artemis Project Satellites and Commanders, another expansion. June was chock full of expansions, apparently. I played Elric. I think it's called Elric the Last Kingdoms. We'll be talking about that more in a full dedicated review at some point. I played Skyrise, which I had a full dedicated review as well. That's a Roxley Games Kickstarter, which probably ended by the time you're watching this. I played Kawaii, which is a small little ice cream game with like little ice cream. You're creating sets of ice cream. I believe I'm doing a roundup review on that one at some point. We have Isle of Sky, the expansions for the Isle of Sky. Isle of Sky is a great game. Had that one for a while. Dove into the expansion for the first time. The Journeyman expansion, I believe, is the one I played. I have more expansions. I will not be counting them when I play those. I played Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein, which honestly I feel like I should have talked about Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein would have been a good one to talk about. I might choose to talk about Wolfenstein despite the fact that it's in my not talking about section. We have The Breach from Ludus Magnus Studios. I dove into that one. Didn't end up covering it. I had too many issues with the game in terms of what it was doing. I like maybe I should talk about The Breach 2. Let's talk about The Breach 2. I'll add Wolfenstein and The Breach up to the top. Union Stockyards, fine game. I did a review on that one. You can check that one out. I had Bark Avenue, another game I did a review on. We have Septima from Mind Clash Games. Again, another review. We have Endless Winter expansions, or with Endless Winter with the expansions. Again, continuing the train of tons of expansions in June. We have Of Dreams and Shadows. Of Dreams and Shadows is from Greenbrier Games. I dove into that. Interesting game. I'll have a review on that one shortly. We have Burger Up, another small game from, I also think, from Greenbrier Games. Then we have Fluttering Souls. Fluttering Souls is a small little game from Good Time Games, but it's almost like a Seven Wonders dual approach, but in a lighter package. And then lastly, we have Misty, another small box game of, I don't even know how to explain it. It's basically like card sliding until you get the most points. Intriguing concept. It has drafting, which I love, but didn't ultimately stick with me. It's in another roundup review. And those are the games I'm not talking about, I guess including Wolfenstein and The Breach, that will add to the games we're talking about section. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the games that we are talking about. Starting off with Tiny Epic Vikings. Tiny Epic Vikings was the first Tiny Epic games that I'm keeping, at least for now. Everything I ever keep is at least for now. It's always with the mindset of, I like you enough to hold on to you, but also there's new games coming, there's old games I love, and it's always a balance and a struggle, and sometimes I find myself more compelled in the short term than the long term. Sometimes not. Sometimes I stick around for a long time. I still have Mythic Mischief, love that game, still have Mind Management, just looking at my shelves, Aquatica. There's so many games that will stick and last and just are amazing. Some will, many other games will go away and not stick around at all, and other games will be compelling, and then time will go on and I'll realize that it was more of a compelling in the short term. That's the nature of these updates to reviews. And I always feel bad about those. This is a separate conversation, but like I always feel bad about those because the only way to really know is to only review a game after like 10 months have gone by. Otherwise, it's just making a best guess at the moment. But most games do stick with where I think they land, and I think Tiny Epic Vikings will last for a decent amount of time in my collection. I played Tiny Epic Vikings. There's a gameplay on that. You can check that out. And I really enjoyed it. I thought Tiny Epic Vikings was a solid game that to me was the first Tiny Epic game that I enjoyed enough to consider keeping, because the others have all been enjoyable. I would say I've enjoyed every Tiny Epic game I've played to various degrees, and this is the one that lasted for me. Again, lasted is a relative term, I don't even have it yet. But the combination of The combination of, was it even drafting? I don't remember if there was drafting. I feel it's drafting. The combination of drafting, the combination of the 3 ages of play, the area control, the elegance of the building off one another, I really enjoyed what Tiny Epic Vikings did. And for me, it's just notable just from the fact that most Tiny Epic games I find are tiny, and they compromise on what they're trying to do because they're trying to be Tiny Epic. And this one, I did not feel compromised as much. So Tiny Epic Vikings. Then we have RuneScape Kingdoms, which is an interesting one to me, because I just got rid of Bardsung. And RuneScape Kingdoms is a game that I believe I'm getting a copy, and I want to play that one. But I want to play it with my son. RuneScape Kingdoms is an interesting game in the sense that it's a lighter game, very much a lighter game. It's from Steamforged Games, and I really enjoyed my play of it. I played it for like 2 hours online with them, and just dove into it once. And it's completely light. It's completely, totally light. It is not a game you should dive into if the words light scare you. It is a lighter experience, catered towards an audience that may not be playing the board games we're playing. And I think it does a decent job in that sense. I enjoyed my play of it, but it's lighter in the sense that I'm only going to play this with my son. I would not play this solo. I would not play it with anyone in my game group. I would play it with my son. But I do want to play it with my son. In fact, Bardsung, which is a game that I also got from Steamforged Games, I tried playing with that one with my son initially. And I just found over time that he was with me for the first few missions, but his availability was lesser, and his interest waned on it to a degree because there was a lot of checking that I had to do for him, a lot of stat checking that I was doing. Versus I think RuneScape Kingdoms he could keep up with. So I guess the net takeaway is I like Bardsung more than RuneScape Kingdoms in some senses, but practically speaking, I think RuneScape Kingdoms is a better suit to play it with my son and to simply go through the process of moving, making a skill check, moving, making a skill check, leveling up, encountering the bosses. I think it's a fun procedural adventure into, adventure games. We have Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I don't know when this video goes up versus when Cyberpunk ends. It's entirely possible that Cyberpunk is already over, in which case there's still a late pledge option, I believe. Cyberpunk 2077 by Common. I don't even know if I did a first impressions on this game or not. I played the game, and I may have done a first impressions video on it. I just don't know. This was a harsh campaign for Common, which I expected it to be, but not as harsh as it actually ended up being. But Cyberpunk 2077 is a really solid game. Now, I'm saying it's really solid without the comparison to The Godfather Corleone's Empire, which is a relevant comparison considering the price point of the two games are very different. But I liked The Godfather Corleone's Empire. That's not true. I don't know why I said that. I haven't played The Godfather Corleone's Empire. I like Cyberpunk 2077. You always gotta be careful what you say on camera. You could say the wrong thing, and then people catch you out on a lie when you really just messed up which game or words you're referring to. But Cyberpunk 2077, I really enjoyed it a lot. I do need to play it more. It's one of those games where if I was rating it right now, my instinctive answer is that it's either a 4 or a 4.5. But I have to play it more. That's the problem. I don't know where it lands, and I'm not confident enough. In general, a single play is not enough for me to, say a rating. It's enough for me to say, here's where I think it's headed, but not enough for me to actually say. And it could just as easily be a 4 as a 4.5. Like, if you're watching this and reading into it and using it as your baseline, assume a 4. I don't think it goes to a 3.5 at all. Based on my play, I don't think it goes to a 3.5. I could easily see it being a 4.5, and I don't think it goes to a 5. So I think the range is 4 to 4.5, but if you're making a buying decision based on me saying this, assume it's a 4, just for safety's sake. But I really, really enjoyed it. I'm curious how it stays long term. It's vying for area control in a genre where I have a lot of great area control, but I enjoy the process of gathering the characters, the cyber runners, whatever they're called again, the net runners, edge runners, whatever they are. I enjoy the choices you make and the tactical ways you can mess with your opponents. I've read the rules for Godfather Corleone's Empire. I see the barest minimum of DNA overlap between the two games, but the same way anything in the Eric Lang, in the area control Eric Lang trilogy is, Blood Rage, Rising Sun, and Ankh are all very different experiences. So maybe this is similar to Godfather in that level, but not more than that. But I really enjoyed it. Sniper Elite. Sniper Elite was an interesting one for me. Sniper Elite is a game that I really, really liked, but also it doesn't compare to Mind Management or Beast for me, at least for me. And I think it's a great game. I believe Dice Tower gave it a seal of excellence. I give it a 4 to 5, which is really solid, but also it's a 4 to 5 that's not sticking around. And it's a 4 to 5 that's not sticking around because I'd rather play Mind Management or Beast, and those are Mind Management is a 5 out of 5 for me. Beast is a 4.5 that might make its way to a 5. I need to play the final game. And Sniper Elite was really, really fun. In fact, if I had to rate all my hidden movement games, I think Sniper Elite is probably the third favorite from the ones I've played. It's better than Spectre Ops. It felt most similar to Spectre Ops, and I thought it did Spectre Ops better than Spectre Ops to Spectre Ops. And I like Spectre Ops as well. I like hidden movement as a genre. It's not a hard genre for me to like, but there are better and worse games within the genre. I think Sniper Elite is a better game within the genre, but I don't need 3 of these. 2 is already plenty. And so I really, really like and really enjoy Sniper Elite, but it's also not beating Mind Management and Beast, which I was relieved, by the way. One of the weird balances of being a content creator is sometimes your opinions, like, you want them to land a certain way so you don't look a certain way. And looking, if I reviewed Beast, because I reviewed Beast and I was like, this is the best hidden movement game I played. And then I reviewed Mind Management, I was like, this is the best hidden movement game I played. And if I review Sniper Elite, I'm like, this is the best hidden, it doesn't look good. I'll do it if I feel that way. It's I mean, I'm not going to make a game worse to appease the people who want me to be more critical. The light's green. I feel like the lights behind me are green. Give me 1 second while I just fiddle with the light here. There we go. Sometimes that cable gets a little loose, and we just get green lights instead of whatever. Anyways, I don't know why a loose cable translates to green lights. I'm sure electricians know. I just know it happens. So that's Sniper Elite. Then we have Now or Never. Only a handful of the games are actually on the table, by the way, but Now or Never from Red Raven Games. I really like Now or Never. It's a kind of game, well, I played it once. And then I was like, this is really good, but I don't need to play it again. But then it sat in my head. And I was thinking about it. And I continued to think about it. And I was like, I want to play it again. I want to dive into it. I want to try the story mode. I didn't play the story mode the first time. And it's one of those games that kind of sat with you. Games go different ways for me. Sometimes I play a game, and one of the reasons I try to wait between playing a game and reviewing it is, I mean, even if I get multiple plays, if I play it like 3 times in 2 days, whatever it is, and I'm ready to review it, I try to wait. Part of that is because sometimes a game will be compelling, and then as a week goes by, you're like, it is compelling, but I don't need to play it. There's other games I'd rather play. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. Very often those games to me are 3.5s. That's a good game. It's not a good game that's sticking with me in my head. Now or Never is the opposite. I played it. I was like, that was good. Left it alone, and then I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I hunted down a copy, and I'll be playing it because I think it's a really good game. And I really enjoyed it. I don't know when I'll be playing it to review it, but I just want to talk about it here because it's one of the games I played, and it's one that... the copy I played, for context, was not my copy. It was Quackloaf's copy. And I went down and hunted down a copy because I really want to play Now or Never. Then we have Lunar Rush. Lunar Rush from Dead Alive Games. This is an upcoming prototype, upcoming Kickstarter. I don't know whether you're watching coverage of this. I assume you're watching this video before you actually see a review of this one. But Lunar Rush is a very, very solid game. I need more time with it, but it's a very solid game of trying to manage different space production lines. It's a bad way of explaining it. Basically, the ultimate goal is to gather resources and sell them at a marketplace. You have a marketplace, the more you sell, the prices go down, so you want to get there first. That's the ultimate goal, just getting a return on your resources. The problem is you make these resources on the moon, and you have to get things and people and resources to the moon, then you do stuff at the moon and send them back down. And there's these chains of what you're willing to bid and how fast things go and how much cargo it carries. And you're trying to manage these cycles while dealing with a worker placement engine. So there's a whole bunch of things all happening at once in the moon. And you're managing 15 different workflows as far as different types of cards, different speeds to get things up and down, and the worker placement. I had some nitpicks around things like component stuff and crystals and some degree of accessibility off the bat. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the engines that you're building and the worker placement engines that you're developing and the timing of everything around those worker placement engines. I really enjoyed Lunar Rush. Really enjoyed it. You'll see coverage of it at some point in some way. Then let's go ahead and jump to Wolfenstein, because I mentioned I'll do Wolfenstein in the Breach. Let's do them here. Wolfenstein from Arkane Studios was a game I was looking forward to because... primarily because of King Ravager's coverage of it. And King Ravager and I, when it comes to these style of games, I find sometimes I align with him, other times I don't. This is one of those don't times. This is definitely one of those don't times. I liked concepts that Wolfenstein did. I liked concepts. The limited ammo, I really generally enjoyed that in games. I like the tension around that. Not the limited ammo, sorry. The using the ammo tokens to augment and update and get upgraded abilities on your weapons. That concept I liked. Limited ammo I've seen done in plenty of games. This concept, not as much. You could cash in your ammo to get like a more solid effect. You could collect ammo. Very interesting concepts around the ways you use your weapons in the game. Past that, I thought it was totally okay. Not bad. Not bad at all. It was totally, totally okay. But I didn't need to continue playing it after I played a few missions in. I was like, this is fun. This is good. This is okay. I'd rather play Zombicide, I'd rather play Massive Darkness, I'd rather play Besieged, I'd rather play Cthulhu Left May Die. There's like 15 other dungeon crawlers I'd rather play over Wolfenstein, and so Wolfenstein's leaving, not because it's bad, just because it's okay. And it's okay in a genre that, like if you're in it for the Wolfenstein IP, if that's what you're in it for, I think you'll enjoy the game. I wasn't. I was in it for the gameplay. And the gameplay to me was good, but not as good as other games in the genre. The Breach is more complicated. The Breach is one of those games that I turned down for coverage. Lewis Magno Studios sent me a copy. The nature of me doing these videos means I tell you all the games I play, and that includes The Breach. And I liked a lot of things that The Breach was doing. A lot of things. Like, The Breach, thematically, it was incredibly well done. Mechanically, running your own cubes and engines was a very fun and satisfying puzzle. The concept of being ejected from the breach and copying information, all those things, both thematically and mechanically, I liked a lot of what the breach was doing. I didn't like one thing, though. To the point, though, that one thing really colored my perception and experience of the game that I was like, I don't want to cover this. It's not for me. The enemy AI. Managing the enemy AI felt like a messy co-op experience. It felt like an experience where you're popping down the enemies onto the board, and then you're trying to control on your turn the enemies to send them after your opponents. And the whole process and system around it just felt cluttered and messy and not satisfying or rewarding. It almost felt like a semi-co-op nature, where we're playing our own agendas in the game, but we're hacking into our corporation, and the enemy AI is present, and the enemy AI is being semi-controlled by me to attack you and semi-controlled by you to attack me. It just felt semi-co-op. It felt very semi-co-op in what it was doing. I didn't like that. I don't like semi-co-op in general. And it's not pure semi-co-op, but I didn't like the enemy AI. It's one part of the game, but the problem is it is a huge part of the game because it's how the board keeps you in check. You're not actively fighting the other opponents that much, the other players. You're doing a little bit. You're going to ping them here and there to try to get stuff, but it's not that active. And so, like, even though I liked the rest of the game around it, and I want it to be a different game for me, I want the enemy AI changed and different, in some way more impactful or better, but for me, it killed the entire game for me, because I was like, I don't want to play this game because my turns are fun and interesting, but I don't like the way the enemies, which are a core component of the game, are being managed. From there we go to Tainted Grail. And let's actually start with Tainted Grail Conquest, which is not on the table because it's a digital game. I do count digital games, by the way, for my plays a day, but only if they are board game adjacent. In other words, I'll count things like Tainted Grail Conquest, Slay the Spire. I mean, I didn't count Slay the Spire because Slay the Spire is a game I already played. It's not new to me. But there's a handful of digital games I'll count. I don't know if there's that many because there's not that many that there's not that many digital games that I play that I haven't already played in the past. But things that feel like a board game, things like Hearthstone, like Slay the Spire, like Tainted Grail Conquest. Those are things I'll count as my game a day if it's something new to me. So this may well have been the first time I'm actually counting one, just for the record. But either way, point is, Tainted Grail Conquest is a Tainted Grail game that is on Steam and is fun because it feels like Slay the Spire. But I also think I just prefer Slay the Spire. I dove into Tainted Grail Conquest a few times just to get a feel for it, just to dive into it. I heard it's like Slay the Spire, I liked Slay the Spire, I wanted to try it, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process of diving in, I enjoyed the process of going through it, until I died a few times, and then figured I'll come back later. And then when it's time to come back later, I just played Slay the Spire instead. I like Tainted Grail Conquest, I do, but I think that for me it's at best a replacement for Slay the Spire when Slay the Spire starts to feel samey. I also believe that they're changing Tainted Grail Conquest, like they're redoing Tainted Grail entirely from the ground up with like a more first-person game, so they're completely changing their approach to it. But either way, that's neither here nor there. Anyways, from there let's go to Tainted Grail. Let's save Tainted Grail for last, actually. Let's go to the Guild of Merchant Explorers. The Guild of Merchant Explorers is another game that was totally fine. Really enjoyed it from AEG. Solid game. Enjoyed a lot of elements of it. And yet, that one falls into the category of, at times I wonder if playing too many games can cause you to be jaded. Which is something that I think is only a problem if you're reviewing a lot of games, playing a lot of games, covering a lot of games. I think at times you could be jaded. And it's something I'm always mindful of. Now, don't get me wrong, my rating was a 3.5 out of 5. It's not a bad rating. That's a standard rating of, I like you, I'll miss you, but I'm fine missing you. And I enjoyed the Guild of Merchant Explorers, but sometimes I wonder if I'm playing too many games within a category, and a game that I would have liked more 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if I'm less likely to love it because there's too many games in that category that I'm playing. And that's what Guild of Merchant Explorers was for me. It was effectively a role in my game. This is true for a bunch of other games. There's another one as well. What's the, Let's Make a Bus Route, or, it's called something else now. Something else. It's called the re-implementation of it. There's a bunch of games that fall into these lighter categories where I find it's harder for them to stick out for me. And as a result, I am less compelled by them, even though they're very, very solid. I think the Guild of Merchant Explorers is an excellent game. But there's too many other games in that category that do that for me, but potentially better. For me, the main thing about Guild of Merchant Explorers I really enjoyed was you get these powerful cards that you can use again and again, and those are a lot of fun. They make you feel powerful. The rest of the game, though, was good. in a genre that I have a lot of good games. And so the rest of the game on its own would be a 3. That element of the more powerful, cool cards bumped to a 3.5 for me, where I really enjoy them. I really, really enjoy those cards, and like that's the most compelling reason to dive into it, to continue to dive into and try and see and experience those different cards that make you feel powerful. Next up, we have Forsaken. Forsaken is an upcoming crowdfunding campaign. I don't know if Kickstarter or GameFound. I believe Kickstarter, but I'm not certain. And it's on Game Trace. Game Trace is running it. And Forsaken was an interesting one for me. I don't know if I'll be doing more coverage in the game or not. I don't know. I mean, any coverage in the game. I just don't know. But I had a chance to play this with Quacklope when Travis Chance was in, showcasing the game. And it's a solid game that is also not for me because it has similarities, at least not for me in its current state. Although I might try it solo. That might be the part where I'm interested in it. Effectively, it's Western Legends on like 14 different steroids and drugs and everything else. It takes the Western Legends concept, the open world sandbox exploration, and it adds so much more stuff layered on top of it. Stuff that is good, that is enjoyable. The weapons, the gear, the leveling up, the story, it adds a ton of things and does so very, very well, and I cannot wait to see the production of this game because it looks like it'll be amazing. And I enjoyed my play of it. It was a single play. But also it felt like it had some of the problems I have with Western Legends. The problem is that I don't care about your turn, I only care about mine. And the fact that you're running around this galaxy doing your own thing just doesn't bother me. It just feels like, okay, well, when's it my turn again so I can continue my plans? And it had the sense of escalation as your characters. Your characters going through their own little story. A story that has a little bit of choose your own adventure, but just is a really fun story. They're like really thematically well done. I might try it solo. If I have a chance to try it solo, I might do that because if the solo can carry the game for me, I think I would enjoy it. I liked it a lot in terms of what I'm doing. The same thing with Western Legends. I just don't care about your turns. And you're not impactfully in my way enough for me to start caring about your turns. It's a selfish game. I think both those games are selfish games where I just want to do my own thing and I don't care about your thing. And then lastly we have Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. Tainted Grail I started diving into right before Origins and holidays. There was a period of time for about a week, 2 weeks where I was really stressing myself out because I had just taken off a week and then I was going to Toronto the next week and then I was possibly going on vacation after that, and it just trying to cram all the videos and stuff I'm doing into a very, very constricted time frame was very stressful for me. And I was like really getting to myself. But right before that, that's beside the point. Right before that happened, I dove into Tainted Grail. And I really liked it. Really, really enjoyed it. Didn't get very far, mind you, but I really enjoyed what little game I played. And now I want to play it more. And I will. I will play it more. I'll be diving into it as soon as I possibly can, but I haven't had a chance to dive into it again. I've now been prioritizing getting ahead. Because of how stressful for me Origins and Holidays were for me, I have been prioritizing getting ahead, so that I can take off. I want to be able to take off a full other week and feel like I didn't really lose anything. That I was so far enough ahead that I'm good. It's all fine. I want to just get that level of comfort. I just don't like the stress of things. But I will be diving into Tainted Grail again. Possibly doing it for Patreon, for Twitch in terms of gameplay. I don't know the exact details. But I really was compelled by the combat systems, the diplomacy systems. I liked the card chaining, the exploration. It was really, really... Like, this is a game I've been holding off on for a while. I've been too busy. I got the game and I started doing content creation. I just put it on my shelf. I was like, I'll get to it eventually. And eventually happened now because now they have, like, The Last Night or whatever the new one is that's coming out. They announced that. I was like, well, I have to play Tainted Grail then because this is going to be coming soon. And so I will. I'll play Tainted Grail. But for right now, there's no for right now. I just like Tainted Grail, and I'm excited to dive back into it. And that's where we are. These are the games today, the 30-ish games or so that I played in June, with some notes and some less so. I'm already mostly through my July list. My game a day challenge for context does not mean I play a game every single day. It just means I have to play, on average, a game every single day. And I'm already mostly through July. I have been falling behind a bit recently. The whole catching up thing. So, like, I got, almost a full month ahead. Now I'm, 25 days ahead. But I should be fine for July. The question is, at what point do I start falling apart? And do I really start falling behind? I hope not at all, because I appreciate slowly checking things off my list. But in any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, have a good one.